Good evening and many thanks for watching KTN. Welcome to the edition of Health and Wellness, where we keep on saying that your health is your wealth. And here to have a discussion around mental health and bipolar discussion is Maggie Mungai, who is a counselor, karibu sana, as well as Gumaiwa Mwavali, who is living with the same, and he says he wants to be called G. G, how are you?
I'm good.
So I want to start with you, Maggie.
Okay.
Let's just start from the onset. What is bipolar disorder?
Okay. Bipolar disorder is a mental health condition, meaning that someone is experiencing two moods. There's a very extreme high and also a very extreme low. So the high is the hypomania, and then the low is the depression. But then again, at some point, we also categorize the mania. We categorize that as not the extreme, where we have bipolar 1, and we have hypomania, where we have bipolar 2, which is now the lesser of the first one.
Yeah.
Yes.
G, one asks the question then, as a person who's living with the condition, right? When was it diagnosed? When did you find out that you had a problem and perhaps needed help?
The first signs and symptoms were in class 7, when I was in class 7, just at the onset of puberty. But because I was going through puberty, it was considered this is just a phase that he'll outgrow with age. But that didn't happen. So it was until high school that I saw a doctor in the school that I was in. It was in the same vicinity as a hospital, St. Mary's Hospital. So I spent most of the time in his office in the evenings, and I used to avoid going for games, so I'll just pick his brain on a lot of things. And out of that interaction, when I told him about my health history, he said that I have manic depression, which later on I came to learn it's actually bipolar. So initially it used to be called manic depression, mania depression, but right now it's bipolar.
Yeah.
So after that, it took a series of, I was on medication. Then, but when I was transitioning into college, the symptoms became worse. And that's when was the first time I saw a psychiatrist, who then took a whole 1 year of assessment, continuous assessment, and he conclusively diagnosed me as having bipolar. Yeah.
Terry, so here we are finding ourselves living with individuals with these complications every day in our daily life. And for us to be able to treat something, we must know about it, but we don't. We live in a community where mental health issues are categorized as they've been bewitched, Uyo alirogwa. How do we change that? How do we deal with these issues?
I think what we need to do is we need to, first of all, change the language that we use when it comes to mental health issues, because this is when you have a mental disorder, it's an illness just like any other. When your heart is not okay, you go see a cardiologist. So if your mind is not okay, that's when you need to go see a psychologist, a psychiatrist. It just means that there's a part of your body that is not okay. So the language that we use, and also we also need to educate ourselves so that we are not just working around myths and looking at things and just dismissing them or just putting them in a box that they don't even belong at all. So when we educate ourselves, then we're able to speak out of, we're not speaking out of ignorance, because one of the things that myths will do is we are speaking out of ignorance. When we say it's witchcraft, or you need to go for prayer so that you can be delivered from that, that comes from a point of ignorance. Because when we educate ourselves, we're able to know that it's something that is happening in your body, the wiring in your brain, that something is not right, but yet it can be managed.
Yeah. How common is it? How common is bipolar, and who is at risk, mostly at high risk?
Studies show that globally, I haven't checked in our country, that 1 in 200 people will have bipolar. So I would say then that makes it pretty common. And who is at risk of this? Because we do not have like a very specific thing that, because even when we look at genetics, the studies will show it's not specifically that your genetics make you predisposed to get bipolar. Sometimes it's, you know, the way your brain is wired, the chemistry, what is happening. So there's no specific thing that then makes you be a person that you can easily say Dennis can get bipolar. But then again, there are also those triggers that happen, and then they predispose you to also have this. Yes.
Gee, so at 7 years old, that is primary school?
Yes, class 7.
Class 7, or class 7,
yeah,
at class 7. At that time, as Dr. has said, what were the triggers? What were some of the symptoms that you had at the time that looking back today, you say, aha, those were signs that I didn't know about?
Yeah, for me, some of the symptoms I experienced were, I used to have like a burst of energy, extreme, what you call an extreme emotional upsurge. So I might become in one moment, the other moment I'm really hyper, I'm participating in many activities that I wouldn't usually do on my normal season. So doing a lot, working a lot, sleeping less. Part of it also I eat less. So then it gets to what I said, irritability, aggression. That is anger, extreme anger, rage. Actually, it's called bipolar rage. Then when you slip now into depression, you experience now a sense of hopelessness. You lose interest in the things that you're usually enthusiastic about. You sort of experience an extreme case of withdrawal. So you are not moving, and you basically withdraw from people. Those are some of the symptoms I used to encounter.
Yeah, the first time you said when you were in high school, you had a meeting with health professionals at the school, St. Mary's, right? And later in campus now, it became worse. How did the assistants in high school help you cope with it during that period? And after the fact now in campus as well, when it was really worse, that you then got another help? How did that help you deal with the problem?
I think when you finally gain understanding on what you're going through, when you actually have the vocabulary around describing what you actually have. Having been close to the doctor while I was in high school, it was actually, I had to change schools because I was in boarding since primary school. So going to high school, people will assume it's the weather. I was in Western Kenya. People will assume that I wasn't boarding well with the weather around there. And my first actually diagnosis was cerebral malaria. Then from cerebral malaria, it was manic depression. Then from that, when I saw a psychiatrist, it was, at some point I actually saw even an epileptic specialist because I used to experience some numbness in my right side, which years later I came to realize it was a side effect of the medication. Then after being diagnosed, then they had asked me to withdraw some of the medication that I was using for the mood instability. So when I saw the epileptic specialist, I was diagnosed as having a complex partial epilepsy. It's a very subtle form of epilepsy. It's not extreme because of the numbness I was experiencing. Then eventually diagnosed me as having seasonal affective disorder, meaning your mood is affected heavily by different weather seasons. Then finally he told me I have, there's a general term, I have a mood disorder. That's a general term. Bipolar is a mood disorder, schizophrenia is a mood disorder, anxiety is a mood disorder. So later on, and you see, gaining knowledge over time, you even learn how to advocate for yourself, because I'm a self-advocating patient. That's when he conclusively diagnosed me as having bipolar disorder.
Maggie, do we have different kinds of bipolar disorders? What are they? And from a layperson's point of view, how do I pick up that that's a bipolar disorder and perhaps someone needs help?
Yes, we do have different types of that. But before I get to that, we can maybe speak on the symptoms that someone will have, so that you are maybe able to look at the markers and say, maybe something is happening here. So most of the things G has already mentioned. So we have the concentration levels. You get very easily distracted. You're not able to follow a train of thought or something. If you're doing something, you get so easily distracted. And then there's impulsivity. And then with this impulsivity, it also comes with reckless behavior, that you might jump off a moving train. There's also issues to do with also gambling, risky sexual behaviors. So the impulsivity is there. And then grandiosity. This is a feeling of I'm better than
everyone else.
Yes, I am. And also just feeling like you may have skills that you quite don't have. Like, I think there's this meme that's going around, people saying, maybe I can do brain surgery, just that I've not been challenged to do it. So like you may be feeling that, but then, in reality, that's not it, but it's because of this. And then now there's the fast thinking. I think Jim mentioned that a bit, that, your thoughts are racing. You're not able to, like in your head, have, like a slowed kind of progressive thinking. And then now, which then also brings around the activity. Like you may pick like 5 projects to do at the same time. You're doing this, you drop it, you start doing and all that. G also mentioned about sleeping. The issue with sleep is that you will maybe sleep for like 2-3 hours, but then you're also very energetic. For someone who's not living with bipolar, when you have very few hours of sleep, when you wake up, you're tired, you're lethargic and all that. But someone who has bipolar, 2 hours of sleep, I'm good and I'm okay and I'm very energetic. The other thing is, because you said my thoughts are racing, so even when I'm talking, there's a way, those words are just like falling out of my mouth. It's like, very fast, because I'm trying to keep up with what is happening, and what I'm saying. So when you then look at these markers, this being on the side of the high, and then the depression, what you said, withdrawal, you don't have interest in things you used to enjoy before, and then it's, I think you had mentioned this, the way we just throw words around. Someone will say, I am depressed. Maybe you've been feeling down for like 30 minutes. But this, it's, we say major depression lasts for around 2 weeks. So it's continuous for a long time. So when you have these markers, that's when you're able to check and say, maybe everything, I'm not okay at all. And so, yes, we have bipolar disorder 1, which has to be marked by the manic episode, which I believe it requires hospitalization because it's very high. Hypomania is now, okay, that is bipolar 1, the mania episode and then the depression. But then we have bipolar 2, which is not, we don't have the manic episode, it's hypomania. So that one is, of course, the energy levels are still high, but not as high as, and so then that becomes a milder form of bipolar, but it's still bipolar. And then there's one that is not very well known or talked about, because when we just say bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and then it's called cyclothymia. It's very, very mild. And so I can imagine with this one, because it's the symptoms are mild, the depression is not all that, the mania is not, that one can be very hard to detect. So the most cases I hear of is now the bipolar 1 and bipolar 2.
Bipolar 2.
Yes.
G, you've been diagnosed, now you're going through medication. The community at that point, how did they react? How did your folks react? How did your friends, your siblings react to that?
Of course, it was unexpected. It hit them very hard because during that season, I was, at the time, my second half of my high school or through my first year of college, I was a caregiver. I was a caregiver because I grew up partly in an extended family, with my uncle's family being the extended one. So we took him in. He had suffered a stroke, which he lived with for 7 years. So learning that your son is also having a mental illness, that's another cost implication that comes because of my visits. And when I started seeing my psychiatrist, it was always every month. So every month you're going to see a psychiatrist. Every month there's my uncle who also need treatment. But one of the people who took it very well was my mom. My mom raised me all through until I finished high school, even though my dad was present. And with him, when I was actually, the reason why I saw a psychiatrist while in college is because the first time I was diagnosed as having cerebral malaria, the doctor had recommended a psychiatric interview. And at that stage, mental illness is not something that we used to talk a lot like these days. So he said, no son of mine is mad, because it was perceived that anyone who saw a psychiatrist is mad. And you see, even the mental illness and the mental health, people use it interchangeably. So I remember when my dad my doctor had to summon my parents, and I had an episode in the office, and I was given medication, and the doctor tells my dad that your son has a mental illness. My dad is like, isn't that too big a word to use to describe what this young man has? And the doctor said, no, we call a spade a spade. He has a mental illness, but that doesn't mean that we make it look like that's the end of his life. He'll be able to cope well with proper medication and support. So my mother played a very big role. But then we also had a secondary person, which was now my aunt, because my dad, after the news was disclosed to them, my dad took a very passive role in raising me. But a good thing very early on, he told me that I was conditioned to understand that my parents won't always be there. My dad won't always be there, so I had to learn to cope on my own. Yeah. But my family was very supportive. And my dad's eldest cousin was also the person my mom could lean on the most. And whenever there was an issue at home, she'll be the one to handle it. So, yeah. But the good thing is, having learned that there was a word to describe what I was going through, it was easy even for me to read on it and to be able to advocate for myself and say, in fact, for me, when I make friends, that's the first thing I tell them. If I see a slightest hint that we might be friends for long, that is something I bring up very early on in my friendships. But aside from my family itself, I've gotten a lot of support from my faith community, the church. Initially, it wasn't handled well. Like she was saying, people tell you, you need to do prayers, maybe you need to fast more. How's your relationship with God? Are you sure there's something you're not doing right? So, because the understanding was, as a Christian, I'm not supposed to suffer. But it's even in the Bible itself, we're not promised a life without suffering. But we're promised that God will see us through that. So my faith community and my faith in God has been a very, very good support system. Yeah.
Maki, G has just mentioned that early diagnosis for him is something that was done, Unfortunately, that's not the story for many. By the time someone is being diagnosed, it's usually pretty late. Someone has lived with that for a very long time. Damage has been done for a very long time. One asks the question then, what does early diagnosis mean in overall treatment?
Like someone was saying, when it comes to other sicknesses, say, for example, because we have seen the rise of cancer in our country, if I can use that as an example, when it's caught early, we are happy and we say, this is good, the treatment will, like you have even better options when it comes to treatment. But when it comes to mental unwellness, we start pursuing, treatment when we are in stage 4, because I think as G was saying, there's also that tendency to just dismiss it. Like it's something you can pray over. Like we don't give it the seriousness or the gravity that it deserves. So we are not very keen on getting the treatment that is required. So as with any other diseases and illnesses, the later the diagnosis, as you've said, the greater the damage that has already happened. So the earlier the diagnosis, then the better.
The better.
Yes.
G, after diagnosis, you go through treatment, your family is aware of it, your friends are aware of it. With everyone then knowing what it is you're going through, how does that help you deal with it, either easily or difficult depending on reactions from the people? How did that help the situation or worsen the situation?
For me, it had a negative side to it and
positive.
A positive side. Because there are those who will embrace you with that, and they'll be supportive throughout your journey. But then there are those who will keep a distance. They'll interact with you at arm's length. But the reason for that is because of the myths around mental health and mental illness. And every patient is different. For instance, when people are saying this person is bipolar, I'm sure you know what is usually attributed to. Anger and rage.
Yeah.
But while anger and rage is a common symptom of bipolar disorder, it's not common to everyone. And even the symptoms manifest themselves differently. So for me, if I were to get sick, someone else might go for drinking sprees, having multiple sexual partners because of hypersexuality as a symptom. There goes those who will go to shopping sprees and whatnot. Now, everyone experiences differently. You can tell even with the medication you take. Like for a headache, someone can buy Panadol and whatnot, a painkiller. Everyone else can use that painkiller.
Yeah.
And the headache will alleviate. But now with bipolar, we experience different. Even the symptoms manifest themselves different. Because for me, what usually I go to the extreme of, what becomes extreme is things that I'm inclined to, like my spirituality. You'll see me being more active in church than usual. And you see with that, it's easy for people to miss it because they're like, he's just a dedicated Christian.
Yeah.
Then
today the Holy Spirit came down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have those mixed reactions from people. There are those who, like if I have to go to a new place and I'm talking and I'm laughing and I'm bantering, there are people who will say, hey, this guy has good social skills. But for my family, if my mom hears me laughing, that's a problem. Now, why? Well, I'm generally a happy person. You rarely see me laughing or smiling, laughing out loud. So it's out of the norm. Okay. So it helps to communicate to people that this is what I'm going through, and in case of anything, this is how you can help me. So it helps me to advocate for myself in many ways. But also, knowing that this is what I'm going through, then understanding the triggers that are specific to me. And you see, life is not constant. It's not a flat line. It's progressive. So triggers change, coping mechanisms change. So you are able to take time and do a lot of. It takes a lot of initiative on the part of the patient to understand themselves first. Not even the people who, the society or family. You are supposed to understand it well first. How does this affect me? When I'm happy, what triggers me? What is likely to put me on a low? Like I might be on medication but still experience a high. What is it that I'm doing that is causing that high? So so that I don't just rush to hospital. Maybe like the cold season, we're just entering the cold season. I may be struggling with sleep, not because there's a trigger, but because I'm taking too much tea, too much caffeine. Yeah. So it's undoing the thing the medication is doing. So now I'm experiencing insomnia because the trigger was that I'm just, you can imagine, tea. Yeah, so it really helped in even doing research to understand what it is I'm going through.
Yeah.
Devising coping mechanisms and interacting with other people in the community who also go through the same. Yeah. And also it helps in acceptance.
Yeah.
Because the first point is that if you don't accept it, then...
Mike, what treatment options do we have? Because most of the time, many think, brother, someone who's on the side would say, why do I need to go see Maggie? We'll just sit at the couch, I'll just speak my stories, after that I go home. Many don't look at that as a form of treatment, but aside from just having a conversation and just talking to understand you, what other medications are there?
First of all, when you're talking, in that space, in that setup, we're doing now the talk therapy. So we're just not having a normal conversation. I'm trying to see where you're coming from, what you're struggling with, how your thought process is, and all that. And so that's been also part of the treatment. Then we have we have medication,
Yeah.
which I will not speak very authoritatively about, because then that is the work of a psychiatrist who is to, you know, give you the diagnosis and give you the treatment, like G saying, which different drugs will work for different people, and then at some point some will not be working for you, need to go change that, yes, and all that, yes.
You see, mental health, many say, is a far removed conversation that in our settings where stereotype exists, yule alirogwa. But here we are talking about the fact that it is a disease that, like any other illness, needs attention. It is why here on Health and Wellness, we say your health is your wealth. When we come back, we look at what needs to be done from policy level, what we must all do to say that we are winning in this fight. See you in a bit. Thank you for watching Health and Wellness, and welcome back. We'll continue looking at mental health and bipolar disorder. I want to come to you, G. G, when we talk about what has to do with bipolar and mental health, what is it one thing that you'd want Kenyans, that you'd want the society pretty much to know about?
For me, it is how it affects how we do life. Okay. If you look at me, unless I tell you I live with a mental illness, you won't be able to tell. Now, if I was with a crutch like today, I don't know if you saw, I'm walking with a walking stick.
Yeah.
That's easy for someone to say, hey, what's up? Why are you walking with a stick? So as for mental health, it's for me, it requires a lot of compassion. A lot of compassion, but not to be enabled, to be pushed, but not to the wall. There has to be a balance. And while knowing how to cope ourselves takes a lot of initiative on us as patients, knowing how to support also takes the initiative with those you relate to very closely. So that there's not an over-reliance on what I'm necessarily telling you. Because if you're solely counting on what I'm telling you, then there are a lot of things that you'll miss as a friend or as a parent or as a brother, as a caregiver. So being able to understand this person, and that just as they grow, as life goes on, a lot of things are shifting, not just physically, their physical bodies, but also with their mind. And it's a continuous learning process. Because for me, how I coped, let's say 5 years ago, is not the way I cope now. The triggers the things that used to trigger me a few years ago, they no longer trigger me.
Yeah.
So as life progresses, circumstances change, triggers change. So coping mechanisms have to change, which means you as a caregiver, as a friend, also need to learn there are certain changes that you have to be keen on. And it helps you help that person in a sense whereby they're not able to advocate for themselves, then you're able to speak on their behalf and say, this is what this person is going through, and this and this help is what they need. Yeah.
Maggie, we live at a time where, just like G has mentioned, circumstances, triggers do change over time. So therefore, your coping mechanism as well must transition with that as well, right? But here we find ourselves that with that in mind, we also have technology that is there today. Today I'm feeling low or I'm feeling hyper. Where do I go to ChatGPT? I will go to Dr. Google to tell me how exactly I'm feeling. And you find that unfortunately as well, there are those who self-medicate, So in terms of where we find ourselves, how does self-medication or using Google, avoiding to come to the professionals affecting treatment?
Okay. So definitely this is happening a lot, and even as we get into the age of talking about mental health and wellness, as we get to be vocal about it, the other disadvantage is now there's a way we just, now with the embracing, there's also, people are also very ready to just label themselves. You know, like you said, I'm feeling a bit low, or I was high yesterday, so I have bipolar. And so even when I go online, I will do what we call confirmation bias. I'm not looking at, you know, the markers that will tell me I have bipolar, but I will just be confirming, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm feeling, and just disregarding the other ones. And so by the end of the day, you find people who are self-diagnosing, and they're saying, I act like this, I am like this because I have this condition. And really, you have not been diagnosed by a professional, which is very important for you to be able to say, have even something is, I don't say it's simple, but you know, compare it with bipolar. When you say you have depression, have you had a professional diagnose that yes, you indeed have depression? So that is very important that we move away. It's important, as G is saying, just the awareness to know, this is what I'm dealing with. How do I cope, or how do I help someone who has this? But then again, the confirmation, you know, the confirmation bias that I'm feeling like this, so I'm leaning on me, you know, diagnosing myself with. And when you go to the hospital and then you tell the doctor you have been checking your symptoms on Google, there's a way they just kind of frown at you. They, you know, they feel like it's not the best way to. Yes. Yeah. So of course, there's a high risk when you do that, and also considering our healthcare and e-commerce, that you can easily, you can even get medication delivered, you know. So of course it's going to be a problem. Like G is saying, there's specific medication for specific things. So when I'm self-diagnosing, I am not, you know, when I'm taking antidepressants, when I'm taking the mood stabilizers, what am I taking and what is it doing to me? So it's a very dangerous thing to do, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
G, at the end of the day, there is cost involved.
Yeah.
And many say that people have opted not to go to seek for assistance because of the cost involved. What are we looking at when we talk about treating mental illness?
So, as you said, there's a lot of risk in self-diagnosing. It has to take the work of a psychiatrist. A psychologist can diagnose, but they cannot go to the extent of prescribing medication.
Yeah.
Now, for that, then you have to see a psychiatrist who can now diagnose and administer a treatment plan. As you've heard, it took almost 1 year for me to be conclusively diagnosed. So this is the time I was going to hospital every month. So every month there has to be 4,000 back then. Yeah. Right now it's like 5,000, 6,000, depending on who you're seeing. If you're seeing a psychologist, it's between 2,500 to 5,000 as well for therapy. That's a huge cost. And for someone like me, who I've told you I grew up in an extended family, there are things I avoided a lot. And one of those things is ending up in hospital. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I coped so well for a long time was because of fear. Fear of the cost implication it put on my parents. Because you see here is a family where the father has only been taking care of 2 kids. Now there are 4, 2 of which are not his, plus his elder brother who's also sick. So if you get sick and you end up in hospital, it affects everyone. So there's a cost to that.
Yeah.
Now, there's a cost in terms of also time. There has to be someone to check on you during the extremes or during recovery. So in terms of cost, there's a cost implication to it. And you see, most of us, a lot of people who actually have mental illness are creatives. I am a creative, a multidisciplinary creative. So I practice interior design. I'm a visual and literary artist, a certified carpenter, and a mental health champion with the lived experience of mental illness. I've lived with bipolar for 18 years. Right now I have a dual diagnosis of bipolar and schizophrenia. It's called schizoaffective. Now, for medication, you see the assessments you go to hospital, there's therapy, and then there's medication. Now, there are different coping mechanisms, and there are those who get to a point where they are, with the help of a psychiatrist, they end up going off medication. So they're only using alternative coping mechanisms. And there are those who can only cope on medication. And there are those who need medication and alternative coping mechanisms. So there's a behavioral approach in terms of alternative coping mechanisms. How do you manage stress, your sleep pattern, your diet, and all that? So for someone like me who grew up in an extended family, diet would have played a big role, but you're a big number, so we cannot just prioritize you. There are other answers. So you take what is there, even if it does not necessarily help you. For instance, I can't just eat any food. I have to eat specific food. Otherwise, if I take the medication, then the side effects will weigh heavily on me. And you see, for me as a creative, I work generally with my hands. And if that means I have to take my medication at certain times, then I have to wake up at a certain time, I start work at a certain time, and then at a certain time. So it takes a lot of work on my end to figure that out, that dynamic. And for me, my parents took me to hospital. My mom only took me to hospital once, my dad only once. So all through, I've been going to hospital on my own, paying for reviews on my own. So you can imagine you're going through a law and you're the one who has to pay for that doctor's review, you're the one who has to pay medication. Because as you grow older, culturally, they expected that you're making progress, so you're supposed to even move out some point, live on your own. But then you're here. So you can see how that can affect the family. Yeah. And I was talking to Maggie, and I was telling him, she was asking me how I was, because we're actually close. And I was telling her the first quarter of the year I've not worked. I was pretty much adjusting to medication, because now the medication that I was using for almost a decade was discontinued. So now I'm on a new regimen. The regimen takes, what I'm taking now, it takes 6 to 8 weeks for it to kick in. Within those weeks, you're literally just a cabbage. And right now, getting medication has become very difficult for me because I'm not working. I've actually not worked for the first 18 months after my relapse. And my dad right now in his 60s, the only thing he can give me is food and accommodation. So where does the rest of the other things I need come from? I have to figure out how to do it.
Maggie, this conversation then has just knocked the doors of policy of the country and the need to look at how such cases could be given priority in the country's insurance, And here we not only talk in terms of we have a facility, but we need to have enough psychiatrists, enough counselors, enough psychologists for us to say we're able to wholesomely deal with mental health. I know we have gone through several research. The research that was done that said mental health in the country is a ticking time bomb, but it still remains a report. So if we were to speak to government today to change the situation, what would be your message to the powers that be?
I think what especially makes this, like you're saying, a ticking time, it's the way the invisibility of it, like G was saying. Because, as we said before, this is a way we just tend to rush to the hospital when we're at the crisis level, because otherwise we're telling you, okay, you're just high, you just snap out of this mood if you're feeling low. And so I have seen that we are, if we talk to the government, that they have said then, our new, the SHA, that it's actually covering for mental, health counseling and all that. But then again, when we have these things on paper, but when you go to an institution, sometimes that's totally different. The other thing is we have also been looking at counseling as, as a person in this field, it's almost always like a helping thing. Someone will say, just talk to my friend, go see this person. We also don't take it with the seriousness that it deserves to, so that we can advocate that a hospital needs to have, a certain number of counselors, and all that. And even as we're talking about it being now in the healthcare, we also want to just talk about it being even in our schools, like our kids just being able to get the help that they need. Like you was saying, this started when he was in school. And sometimes it's, and teachers may not be very equipped to, see or pinpoint the markers and see, oh, something is happening with you. So even in schools, we need to have this. We need to have counselors. We need to have a psychologist in a school setup, so that even before we get to the hospital, that someone has already checked and seen that. Because the issue that we have is now the delayed treatment, the way we delay to get to that point of going to the hospital, maybe because of stigma, the cost implication, like you have just said. There's, of course, a big part that we need to do, but also even, like when you look at our public schools, we do not have counselors at all. So that is also, as the government is looking into that, because when we push for it to say, okay, then you can go to the hospital and get this checked. But then again, are we also, like, can I say it's like our primary, where we spend most of our time in? Do we have people that we can go to at that point?
Yeah.
Yes, I hope that answers that question. Yes.
Yeah. G, I want to look at things that many would consider to be very basic and perhaps would not make sense. I want to look at sleep. I want to look at social engagement with people. I want to look at exercise and how critical they are in helping one cope or deal with mental disorders.
So, for me, one of the things that I pride myself in is the ability to be able to work with my hands and my mind. Okay? So if I'm taking medication, the medication is supposed to, is meant to slow me down into the night. Okay? But for it to be more effective, I must also be exhausted for the night. So that means I should have worked during the day. So for me, work looks like being able to work with my mind and my hands. When I have not done both, then I feel like I've not done anything.
You've not met your quota.
Yes, yeah. and I'm one of those people who usually judge it. We tend to judge ourselves very harshly. So, for instance, when I'm on medication, I mentioned that one of the side effects of the medication I take on a higher dose gives me insatiable appetite for carbs and high protein. So you can look at me and look, hey, this guy is doing well, is big and whatnot. And in the African setting, as a man, when you get to a certain age and you start growing bigger, there's a perception that one, umeomoka, okay,
life is getting good.
Life is getting good. Two, you've married.
Yeah.
And if in fact you've not married, then there's someone who's doing the cooking for you. But you see, I might look like I'm at my best when I'm at my worst. There's a time I'd gained so much weight, and the only thing I was taking was bread and milk and bananas, because that's what I could afford in that season. So I've grown so big, I look like I'm doing so well in life, but I'm at my worst. So when I'm unable to work with my hands, then I have to expel that physical energy. So how do I expel it? I go for walks. There's a season I could afford a gym membership. I used to go to the gym. There's a time I live in a place where the apartments had a gym. I was in the first floor. The gym was on the ground floor. That's where support used to come, because my brother will come at my place at 4 a.m. and we'll hit the gym together. The goal being I needed to maintain a certain level of weight for me to be actually to work. Because my work, part of my work, aside for the interior design, the carpentry work, I work on my feet. So I have to maintain a certain weight level for me to function well, for me to be able to stand for long hours. Then one side effect of the medication as well, on a higher dosage, most of the psychotic medication on a higher dose cause sedation. Now, if I'm working in a conventional employment sector, that becomes an issue. For instance, I've only been employed once, and it wasn't a conventional setting. So I used to start my work at noon all the way till PM. So I had to learn what are my optimal hours. So I must be well rested for me to be able to function during that window. And sometimes family helps, like, hey, you need to get some rest. Someone who can actually tell you, hey, you need to get some rest. You're doing this excessively. And sometimes I remember, like right now, I live with my father. I've been living with my father as a primary caregiver for now 1 year, 1.5 years. He's the one who provides everything. So you can imagine, if now he's providing everything and I'm not moving, that means I'm living a sedentary life.
Yeah.
And that's why you see me walking my talk, because at some point my knees weren't functioning completely. So I had to fashion a stick. I had to get help for that. Exercise plays a big role. Yes.
Maggie, if there is something you tell the government of the day, something you tell Kenyans, if you would speak to patients out there, what would that be?
That we need to, first of all, just be educated? Do we say we need to just be aware of what is happening? That, like G said, if we say it's a mood disorder, then what is it about? So that we are not treating people out of ignorance. Sometimes we are also, there's something that says we are, most of us, when it comes to grief, we are illiterate. Because sometimes we don't know what to do or what to say when someone is experiencing this thing. You know, if G tells me I'm struggling with this, how do I handle him? How do I talk to him? Is he going to be, you know? But when we are able to just educate ourselves and know this is what is happening, this is the way this person may act or react and all that, then it helps even with our interactions. Because as I said, there are those people who will just, you know, push you away. And then there are those people who are also going to be like, you know, hovering, like you're now an invalid that needs, so that information is very important. And also, you just said this, when a person who's living with bipolar, if they're not able to work, are we able, I don't know if we can be able to get to that point in our country. I've seen in other countries, it's considered as a disability. So there's some amount, you know, of money that you can get in your account because this condition is making you unable to work and you need a source of income. You need to even get the medication, like the help that you can get towards that. And also just being kind to other people, and because we do not know we don't know what other people are struggling with. So just allowing them that what do we call it? Extending people grace. That if G is presenting with the, you know, the high or the low, you know, just the kindness. Sometimes it's just the basic kindness that you can extend to someone, and that's just going to, you know, make their day. Because you can imagine someone is experiencing this, maybe the high or the low, and then you're expecting them, you know, snap out of this, or why aren't you functioning, you know, at a level that maybe I would expect you to be functioning as you know, as a normal human, if I may say that, when we are at the normal, the euthymia, you know, functioning level. So the expectations that sometimes we put on people, and then we don't know their background or where they're coming from. Yeah, that's what I would say. Yes.
G, if today you were to speak from a point of a bipolar person who's going through the motions, living with the condition every day, what would be your message to duty bearers when you look at the kind of insurance that we have today, the access to facilities, the access to caregivers, to everyone in that sector that would help people living with bipolar live a better and normal life?
Yeah, for me, it's to, I think if there's a group that I feel very heavy for, is the caregivers. Caregivers are people who step into that role without any knowledge of this is what this is, okay? So if you could be able to support the caregivers in a sense that, for instance, for me, I remember during college at some point I had to go for attachment. I was good, so much so that the company actually stepped in to support our family. And that meant that they paid my fees for my final year of college.
Yes.
And I've had a lot of opportunities in terms of empowerment, in terms of my own skills, whereby, because you see, for someone like me, I was raised to pull myself up with my own bootstraps. But then that's not always the case. You cannot always do that. And sometimes trusting that God can provide and sustain you, and he does that sometimes through people. We were sharing with Maggie before we started out, and I was telling her that the season that I've not worked, last year there's a couple who stepped in and bought me medication for like 3 months, a couple in church. So if I can get support to get that basic help, because for us, apart from the basic needs, medication is also a basic need for us. Okay. Coming into this year, there are 2 sisters who came, my neighbors at home, and they bought me medication for up to 6 months. So you can imagine, if I have that solved, then I'm able to do other these things, because one of the things a lot of people do not understand, and I think it's usually not clearly communicated even in the clinical space, is that medication does not heal. The medication you take does not actually heal bipolar or schizophrenia or anxiety disorder. It manages it. It gives you a certain level of functionality. For it to ensure that you're not in neither the extreme high or the extreme low, you're at a balance, because life in itself for someone who's considered normal is also not a flat line. Yeah. So if we can have a way where the medication can be easily accessible at an affordable rate, then that can really, really help those who are going through this. Yeah. For instance, I've mentioned a number of times I self-advocate. I pay for my own medical reviews for medication. When I got my relapse, the people who supported me heavily were my clients. Yeah. I had a medical bill that was cleared just from my clients. They cleared it. That helped me be able to at least bounce back. So that when I'm bouncing back, I'm not thinking about, oh, I have this huge bill that I need to sort.
To clear.
That it's sorted means that I'm able to work. I'm able to achieve daily functioning, that I'm able to live life just like anyone else. Yeah. So if you can have systems in place where some of these services are actually subsidized, so that they're affordable to everyone who's experiencing this.
Yeah. Quickly, your number so that you can give your business. You said you're a certified carpenter.
Yes, I am an interior, can I just mention it? I'm an interior designer, a visual and literary artist, and a certified carpenter. As an interior designer, I do general fetal projects, but my forte is in woodwork and the wood elements of interior design. All right. As a carpenter, I have an extension of the business where I actually, it's called DIY with G, do it yourself with G, whereby we go beyond design and craftsmanship. The goal is not only to build beautiful and functional spaces or exquisite and timeless furniture pieces, but pass on the same skill to those who have a shared love for woodworking, but also who are going through mental distress and are looking for alternative coping mechanisms alongside medication.
All right. Yeah. All right. DIY with G.
Yes.
And where do we get you a number real quick, Maggie?
Oh, we just started an initiative. It's called Mind Spring Wellness and Counseling. We are looking to do counseling, especially in our public schools. Like I mentioned, there's that gap. And so we are just looking at organizations that have CSR, and they can just come on board and sponsor the mental wellness workshops, so that even our kids in primary schools and high schools, that their mental health is also well taken care of.
That's well taken care of. You see, your health is your wealth. And this is the part where we say, take care of yourself, be there for everyone around you, and to the government and to all the duty bearers, a lot must be done for us to say that we are moving with everyone together. I'm Dennis Aseto, and on set with me, Maggie Mungai, who's a counselor, and Gumaiwa Movali, who's a victim living with bipolar disorder. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good evening. Till next time, this is Health and Wellness.